Andor, second and final season, is out in full on Disney Plus. 12 episodes, around 40 to 50 minutes each, divided into four 3-episode arcs released on a weekly basis. This is the Star Wars show that serves as a direct prequel to the film Rogue One. It was developed by Tony Gilroy and stars Diego Luna, Denise Gough, Stellan Skarsgård, Kyle Soller, Adria Arjona, Anton Lesser, Genevieve O'Reilly, and Elizabeth Dulau. This was originally planned as a 5-season show, but Gilroy apparently realized in between the first and the second that, first of all, going with the original plan would mean devoting over a decade of everyone's lives to see it through with the current television production schedules. And it will also be close to impossible to keep the budgets and, as a result, the quality on the same consistent level. It's been becoming very clear that while in the past couple of years Disney and other streamers as well have been throwing bags of money around, especially on flagship projects such as Star Wars and Marvel, and they did get burned a little with the low return on investment and mostly low critical scores of those projects, and have probably already started pulling back on those budgets. So instead, Gilroy reworked the 4 remaining seasons of story into 4 3-episode arcs. Each of them takes place over a couple of days, and in between each of them there's a 1-year gap, which I think is a very risky and very unique way to approach this problem and to solve it, but I think it works very, very well here. So, listen, when the first season of Andor was coming out, I was one of those people who were thinking and saying, come on, nobody asked for this one. Who cares about this character? I am excited for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I am excited for the Book of Boba Fett, but Andor, come on. And of course, I couldn't possibly be more wrong, because that first season was some of the most compelling television in the past decade and easily the best Star Wars content since the original trilogy. So now I was really excited and hopeful for season 2, and boy, did it deliver. I am going to use a word here that I don't use lightly. In fact, I'm not sure I've ever used it in a review before, and that word is transcendent. But I think it applies here, because Andor transcends what I think, and I think what others thought or considered possible within the Star Wars franchise. It really is the first truly mature, adult, serious story told within this universe. It is the first that shows how terrifying the Empire can be as an authoritarian fascist regime, and also how the seeds of its downfall lie within its very nature, the nature of self-serving people it attracts and employs. It is the first that made me realize that the rebellion was not a fun adventure at all. It means literally sacrificing your entire life for a cause, leaving your home and loved ones behind, living on the run, taking on assumed identities, being in constant paranoid fear of capture and death. It is the first time the people within the rebellion are shown to be truly ruthless, morally questionable, also that they can stand a chance at winning this fight in the long run. Throughout the second season, 2 monologues from the first one echo constantly. One being Luthen's about burning your own decency and then using the tools of your enemy against them. With how his, Clea's, and Andor's story continues, it really drives the point home that this type of struggle is absolutely soul-crushing for its participants, and it is, again, a sacrifice. And the second one is Nemik's manifesto, which is actually partly repeated in the season finale, but can be clearly seen through the plotline of the Empire and the ISB, how the fascist machine cannibalizes itself in the long run, how it punishes competence and free thought, and eventually leads to collapse from within. And what's amazing about the writing of this show is, again, they don't need to show you flashbacks of those scenes and speeches. You remember them yourself because they reverberate throughout the series. I also think that condensing the show in this way worked to its benefit. Each of the 4 arcs has a sense of focus and a sense of desperate urgency. And it's also constructed really well in terms of setup and payoff. For instance, the first arc this season has Andor stuck between 2 groups of ragtag insurgents fighting amongst themselves. And I saw a lot of people online saying it was a boring way to keep Andor out of the other storyline and sort of fill in his time and stretch the time, and it doesn't serve a purpose, but which I think is completely misreading the intent. This is absolutely needed because it shows you how disorganized, chaotic, incompetent, immature the rebellion is in the early stages, and contrasts that with the later arcs where we see Yavin begin to resemble a proper military in terms of discipline and rank and structure. I think that the characters are fantastically written and layered. Luthen Rail might be my favorite Star Wars character of all time at this point because he's so complicated and yet he serves such an important role in the grand scheme of things. The performances are spectacular across the board, from the main actors who are all amazing to guest stars like Forrest Whitaker and as Saw Gerrera and Ben Mendelsohn as Director Krennic, who show up briefly and completely steal the show. The production design is stellar. Unlike most other Star Wars shows, you can feel that the sets are tactile and physical and real. It's not all fake animations on the volume. Music is great, costumes are great, even things, the little touches like having the Gorman language be so obviously similar and inspired by French, and yet still be a completely made up language. It just feels like a real world. You believe the reality of this show, which I think is so rare in Star Wars. I think the second season overall sticks the landing and cements the show as really one of the most impressive TV shows in the last decade. Certainly, if you look at expectations versus what was delivered, it's a gap. And bear with me, I think this is at this point in time, this is the best Star Wars property ever made. And yes, I am including the original trilogy, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, in this conversation, which might sound like blasphemy coming from a Star Wars fan. But here's the point. The original trilogy remains iconic. I'm not saying it doesn't. It remains iconic as ever. But at the end of the day, it was at its core a simple archetypical story with mostly simple archetypical characters and beats. It is fantastic to experience and love when you're growing up and your understanding of the world grows as a result of consuming these simple stories. But Andor is literally Star Wars for adults. It is something you can endlessly appreciate as something more complex and mature once you yourself are grown up. And it's just absolutely fantastic that we got this show, which again, you could say nobody asked for it. And at the same time, it's so depressing to think that we'll probably never get anything like this ever again, with budgets for these streaming shows inevitably shrinking and studios seeming intent on mostly hiring incompetent, weak writers. The fact that we have 2 full seasons of this masterpiece crafted by an expert writer in Tony Gilroy, executed with care and passion from everyone involved, it really is, I think, a lightning in a bottle, and a shining example of how even a franchise which seems very stagnant and in which seemingly everything has been said already can suddenly produce a true work of art. I'm very happy I got to experience it, and I cannot recommend it enough to people who love Star Wars and also to people who don't care for it.